Okay, folks, welcome to episode 33 of the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. Just watched two pretty good NBA playoff games.
I mean, the second one better than the first, but
Clearly, yeah.
yeah.
But very interesting goings on. I thought the first round was one of the best first rounds that we've had, and I'm so excited about all four of these first round series for different reasons. But yeah, but you had something you want to talk about first before we get to the games.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I guess we'll get this out of the way because the Nets are the Nets have been out of the playoffs for a week now, right? A week,
Yeah,
almost a week, yeah.
Yep.
So God, it's been a week. That's crazy. But anyway, there was a whole thing that everyone was ripping Ben Simmons, and I thought for good reason because it was like, oh, it's my back. No, now it's my mental health. No, it's my back. Well, my mental health, my back is being triggered by my mental. It's like, what is this? What's good? And then the other thing was that we were like, dude, you haven't played in a year. How the hell did you hurt your back? Like
right.
It just seems it just seems odd, So I thought he got a bunch of criticism that was justified, and it was also just kind of like, well, he might come back, But the whole time Steve Nash is saying he's not going to come back, but then it's like his camp is like trying to make it seem like he's going to come back. It's like, can you just pick something? So I thought he got a lot of criticism that was well deserved, but leave it to the media ecosystem to figure out some way to bring up old stuff and then use the Ben Simmons thing to like criticize other stuff that happened to fit into their whole narrative. So do you remember during the Olympics when Simone Biles didn't participate in one of the events?
Right.
She said she had a mental health issue. She was, which made sense because in that event, like if you're screwed up and you're not exactly sure where you are, you could like break your freaking neck. Okay. It's not the same thing as like playing basketball where, I mean, I guess you could break your neck playing basketball, but it would probably be a pretty freak accident. It wouldn't be something like, so, people like Clay Travis, even Doug Gottlieb was kind of on this. They were basically saying that, it's ridiculous that we're allowed to criticize Ben Simmons this way, but no one was criticizing Simone Biles this way. And so I'm listening to this stuff and I'm like, okay, time out. Like you guys are okay. I think one of the reasons that we're so critical of Ben Simmons is that he has not earned the benefit of the doubt. He hasn't won anything. Simone Biles had already won stuff. Okay. And it's as far as what I believe, she stat out that one event, but she was in other events. I think at the Olympics, right? It was just that one particular,
right?
So, they're saying, oh, well, it's just, it's because we can't criticize women, and I'm like, well, I'd be naive to say that probably wasn't part of it. I do think there is some aspect of that in our culture where maybe people aren't going to be so critical of women as they would be critical of men, but I just found that whole point ridiculous. Doug Gottlieb was talking about this too, and he's like, well, women want equal treatment, but it's like, but Ben Simmons is not being treated equally the way, Simone Biles was treated. And I'm like, that really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like I said, Ben Simmons, from all indications, Ben Simmons doesn't give a shit. Like he didn't give a shit in college. Well, like we've talked about this on the podcast, like he just didn't care. So he didn't care. He hasn't won anything. And then the way he treated the Philadelphia 76ers, it's kind of like, well, yeah, we're going to be critical of you because it seems like you're just jerking people around. Being critical of someone who sits out one event and they've already won stuff because, they're, mentally they're not quite right. And in that sport, if you're not mentally quite right when you're flipping around, you're going to break something. I think that's a completely different thing. So I thought that was pretty ridiculous. And then I think there was one other thing I'm trying to think of that I was going to point out about it. Just in terms of, okay. The other thing I was going to say is that like the thing I said before about, well, people may be more critical of men than they are of women, in sports. And I'm like, that may be true, but I'll give you just an example here. I'm not criticizing Simone Biles, but Naomi Osaka, the women's tennis player, she's like not wanting to take any questions from the media and, breaking down in tears over simple questions that she's getting asked at her press availability at tournaments. And then saying she's going to sit out the press availability at tennis tournaments. That seems a little ridiculous, you know. And again, I understand we're trying to be sensitive to people's mental health, but that just seems odd to me. I think it's a legitimate criticism to make.
But
whereas with the other thing, I think it's a false. They're trying to make a through line between the Ben Simmons and the Simone Biles thing, and I don't think it's there. I think it's a ridiculous thing that people are doing where they have this narrative and then they just filter everything through. And then the other thing that I just wanted to kind of point out, especially with stuff on so Clay Travis is kind of, in some sense, he's kind of in new media because he does a YouTube show and he has a website, you know, Outkick the Coverage. Now, granted, he's on terrestrial radio in the slot that Rush Limbaugh was in. Anyway, so that's obviously traditional media, but with the online stuff, that's more new media. Okay. And it's kind of disturbing to me that, like, okay, I thought the point of new media that was that we weren't going to do the same crap that cable news does, where we basically just filter everything through a narrative and it's the same crap over and over and over. Like, I thought we were going to like analyze stuff, like, because we have more time to analyze it, because in new media, you can get more time to really discuss stuff. So anyway, right. I just, you know.
Yeah, that was I mean, you know, number one, I would say Naomi Osaka. These are three completely different situations.
Well, absolutely. Yeah,
Naomi Osaka is playing in the events. It's not exactly. Like she's not going to play.
Yeah,
and she does. She plays, and she plays pretty well. So that's, you know, so that's the first thing.
I was just, in terms of the mental health thing, I think there's right. Maybe a through line with all three of those things. Right. That's all I was really pointing out there.
Right. And you know, Ben Simmons, you know, refused to play because of the situation. First of all, let's go back to the beginning, right? The initial reason he refused to come back to Philadelphia was supposedly because of the criticism that he got from the coach and from his teammates. You know, he didn't want to play there anymore.
Criticism, I think. I mean,
right. Regardless, but he didn't want to play there anymore, regardless of anything else, mental health, physical issues, any of that. So that's where this starts. Number one, he's getting paid $30 million a year and is refusing to play.
Yeah.
So that's a different animal. The other thing you talked about credibility, Simone Biles is basically the Michael Jordan of gymnastics.
Absolutely.
So if she misses one event, first of all, there was only a few people that were really criticizing her for, oh, you got to get out there and whatever. There was only a handful of people.
Jason Whitlock at the time being fucking ridiculous about it.
It was only a few people who were really on her about any of that. So, you know, number one, she didn't get that much criticism. But to say that, you know, these things are so vastly different that you can't really go, oh, well, this is a male-female thing. It's like, no, it's much more of a credibility thing, because Ben Simmons refused to play. Then he kind of like, oh, I'm not going to get all my money. So then he goes to practice and kind of screws around, doesn't really take it seriously. So he's doing, you know, everything that people don't like Ben Simmons is doing.
Right.
And then
the last thing I would point out, I just remember this now. This was the other to point out. Okay. It's fair to say this, because there is a stereotype about millennials and Generation Z, even more so, that millennials and Generation Z seem to think that they're the only generation ever that's experienced any anxiety about anything, you know. And that's a stereotype. Again, it's not true of all of it, but there's an aspect of that, okay? And so I think what happens is people latch onto that, and then they think when people start talking about this, oh, that's what it is. It's like, no, sometimes it may be that, but sometimes it's really not. You have to look at each individual situation. So that's just really poor analysis of the situation.
Yeah, and you know, so then it starts talking about mental health, which, okay, those are legitimate concerns. But my point is, how did you get to this point in your career? You know what I mean? Like, so don't tell me you didn't have a way to handle it before, and now you can't handle it. It's all tied. You can't just point out one thing in Ben Simmons' situation. It's all tied together. And then the other thing that was really ridiculous, and the team should be blamed for this also, is the constant stuff coming out. Well, he's targeting this game, and he might be back this game. And then before game 3, he says, well, I'm going to play game 4. It's like, okay, well.
You're jerking us around, dude. Like, come on.
Don't tell us that, okay? Don't tell us that, and then come back and go, no, I can't because of blah. Well, this is what's going to happen. And I think that Simone Biles got There was it was a pretty big deal when it happened. I think she got plenty of criticism, but she had then came back and performed in the same Olympics. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not like Ben Simmons said, I'm not going to play Thursday night, and then showed up at the game on Sunday.
Again, that's a credibility issue. You get more credibility because I'm just like, well, that one particular event, okay, you know. Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's the same thing. Remember that documentary we both watched about Marty Fish, the tennis player? Yeah, he had already won stuff, and then he just had a freaking nervous breakdown or whatever, and he couldn't play that one tournament, you know, which was like, okay, I understand that. And then he eventually later, he sort of got over that, and he's like, I got to go back to this tournament, and I got to play here. I think he lost, but so what? He like got over the thing. Like, okay, dude, you've got credibility on that, because it seems like you were really like, you know, it was really. I am interested though. Like the last point I'll make is that, like, remember like different stuff that would happen in baseball where there'd be like players who couldn't throw the ball to first base or something.
Yep.
To me, that's almost like a similar thing to like what they were talking about with Simone Biles, where you got like the yips, where you just can't, like, it's like a mental like thing. I'm just wondering how. I mean, granted, the sports media ecosystem wasn't as big as it is now. Back then, when you would hear about stuff like that, but I just wonder how they were analyzed at the time. You know, I think people kind of were just like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah, I think you know, it would be the thing that's getting that's causing a lot of trouble with the Ben Simmons situation is the Brooklyn Nets don't really know what the problem is, and that's exhibited by the fact that they are completely misreading everything that's going on and giving us nonsense information. So the team doesn't understand what's going on with him. So how the hell are we supposed to understand it?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, this is completely, you know, and listen, but I thought Charles Barkley made a really good point on television when he said, look, it's when other players are now concerned about, you know, they don't believe in you. They don't really believe that you care about playing or any of that. And this is your teammates that are saying that. That's a serious problem. Forget us. Like, Ben Simmons will never get the respect of Philadelphia fans ever. He's never going to get the respect of a lot of media people. That's out the window. Forget that. But when his teammates are looking, and all the stories that are coming out now where his teammates are looking at him like, dude, what's the deal, man?
Yeah.
You know, so this is where this is a serious problem. And it goes,
all you people who thought that was such a good trade for Brooklyn, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Not to toot my own horn, but I called it. Okay, I called it. I said it was a bad move for both sides, and I think what's happening now is bearing out. This is a bad move for both sides. We'll see what happens with Philadelphia on that side, but to me, this is and I heard Zach Lowe on his podcast said it this week. Maybe this was just a bad move for both sides. Maybe this is a bad move for everybody. No one's saying that, but that's exact to me, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, and James Harden, like, he had a good game. He had a good closeout game. Well, sort of. He had a good like quarter, and then he was making plays for people. But it's like, okay, so you mean to tell me you're not going to get MVP level James Harden, which to me means he's either going to be at this level or declining for the next few years. And you're telling me, have they already signed him to an extension, or is that what we're assuming is coming? Okay.
No, but he can opt in for 1 year, or he can opt out and try to get a bigger deal. Same situation Kyrie's in. And so, yeah, you know, just yeah, I think that, you know, I heard Colin Cowherd say last week, well, maybe, you know, I think they can still win if Harden's the third best player on their team. And I went, no, they can't.
No,
they can't. No. Tyrese Maxey is not going to give you 25 a game. Like, he can do it sometimes. And, you know, he's looks like a really promising young player, but he's not ready to be that guy right now.
Yeah.
So, and the big issue now for Brooklyn is, with trying to improve their roster, is the Ben Simmons thing.
Yeah.
Like, they're done. They should have traded for spare parts instead of taking one guy with a big contract, because now, like, their options are severely limited. They can't improve
that was
the team.
thing. I think earlier this week, Dan Patrick was talking about, you need depth. And I'm just like, you know, I'm not saying that that's complete BS, but like, dude, okay. The Nets literally almost won all 4 games in that series. Okay.
Right.
Even with all their crap, they almost won all 4 games.
Right.
Okay. So And by the way, their defense atrocious? It
Yeah.
wasn't great, but it wasn't like it was. I mean, there were times during those games where the defense was good enough, but they didn't make. I heard some people talking about, like I listened to that Jason Timpf podcast a lot on YouTube, and he's talking about how there's running sets in the playoffs is less effective because the defense is so intense and it's so much more physical that it's harder to get. And like if a set works once, well, you can't really use it again because they're keying in on it every game, which I agree with to an extent. But I do think that there may have been things that they could have done with Durant to get him the ball in an easier situation, like have him run through a couple different screens or something like that. That maybe that would have helped.
Well, this is what I've heard is that Adam Lefkoe was on Dan Patrick last week. Adam Lefkoe from TNT, he's a broadcaster, and he was saying like he was watching, was at those games and said like the Celtics had hand signals and they would call in what defensive coverage they wanted to run, and Marcus Smart is putting everybody in the right place. Brooklyn had no plays at all. Basically, there was a time where he was describing where Dragic is out on the floor looking at Steve Nash going, "What are we running?" And Steve Nash turns around to his coaches, doesn't have any idea. So Dragic is like, "All right, I got it." Like Brooklyn didn't run any sets. There were no.
They didn't. Yeah, okay.
They had no idea what they were doing.
That's a valid criticism. The lack of continuity, having Kyrie Irving as one of your best players, right. And again, still, even with all that, they were in all 4 games,
right?
So I'm not saying the depth doesn't matter, but you need. I mean, like we were watching Boston today. They don't really have. Tatum and Jaylen Brown had bad games, okay, but they don't really have a lot of star power. So I just like it's kind of funny though. We've been critical maybe of Milwaukee because they pack the paint and they give up open threes. Well, when the other team doesn't make threes, it looks like a really good strategy because Milwaukee was packing the paint and the Celtics could not get in there, and they're just like, all right, well, we better make our threes. And they didn't make enough threes.
All right, so let's get into the games today. On that note, because we could complain about.
I just thought that was
but you're right. You're absolutely right. And that comes into play here. So Milwaukee, Boston played today. Coming into this series, I think it's Middleton not being available is a bigger deal than I think some people are making it out to be. I like, I think, so my sense of it was, I kind of like Boston to win the series. It might go 7 games if Middleton's.
Yes, I started off the series and I was like, even though I could see Boston winning it, I'm going Bucks in 6. Even without Middleton, I just feel like over the course of the series, the Bucks are going to wear on them, and the Celtics don't have enough defensively. I think they'll be fine, and they'll do that to keep themselves close for the most part. But I just over time, they're going to get worn down.
Yeah, and I think, but to me, if Middleton's playing, I'm taking the Bucks all day, and I don't think Celtics have any chance to win the series if Middleton plays. And Milwaukee might be able to, like you said, they might be able to win the series anyway. But I think Boston has a decent shot if Middleton's out. And so so coming to the series and then I'm watching the game today, and, my first thought was, okay, is Boston going to play 2 big guys again, like they did against Brooklyn? Are they going to play Horford and Robert Williams, or are they going to put 2 bigs out there together? Because when you do that against Milwaukee, you're playing right into what Milwaukee wants to do.
Yeah.
Milwaukee loves to play big. They're one of the best big teams in the NBA. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, so they're going to be able to play Brook Lopez and Portis and Giannis at the same time. I went, okay, that's a problem. Like, I don't care how good your defense is. Milwaukee's going to have advantages on the backboard, and they did today. You saw how many second chance points and how physical they were.
Well, Milwaukee, just their length, like against Phoenix last year, it wears you out.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that the Bucks are some dominant team. I don't consider them that, but they have stuff where they can just, over the course of the longer series goes, the more they just wear on you, and it's really difficult.
And, you want to talk about continuity. Milwaukee knows exactly what they're doing on defense. They were leaving Horford and Pritchard and every guy they wanted to take a three wide open.
Yep.
You know, and okay, Horford made some in the beginning of the game. You know, but so that was my initial thought was like Milwaukee's playing this game much smarter. Like they know who they want to shoot the ball, and they're just going to leave them open. And Milwaukee does that. They do give up some threes, but if you give them up to the right people, this is what comes down. This is what happens in the playoffs. You got to have the right people taking the shots. And for Boston, they only have three guys, not even three guys, that I really want shooting the ball. Like Marcus Smart sometimes.
Who?
Brown and Tatum. That's it. Those are the only guys.
Is there a third guy that you sort of trust?
No. I mean, Marcus Smart will get hot in a game or two, but I don't want him taking the shot with the game on the line.
That's why I didn't understand these people going, getting all nuts about Boston. I'm like, look, maybe their defense is pretty good. I think their defense is good. I think they have good tendencies. They communicate well. They're intense. Like Jason Tatum, I'm not really surprised that Jason Tatum can be a good defender because he's got the athleticism to do it, and he just brings the effort and the attention to detail. Then he's going to be good, and that's fine. That'll kind of keep him close. But I'm just like, now again, sometimes Milwaukee, I don't necessarily know that Milwaukee can blow people away all the time. Sometimes they can, but so that's part of the reason Boston can stay close. But I'm just like, who do you got that's going to change that's just going to change things on offense? Like that's gonna break down the defense. Like I just don't. Now again, I think Boston will play better the next game. Milwaukee they won one of the games in Boston, so now it's kind of like okay, and Milwaukee it's not like they're really really consistent, necessarily. So so I just kind of think Boston's going to get worn down. And I still think it'll go 6, but I don't see it. I don't see where I didn't understand when like people were talking about this. I'm like, where's the offense? Like in the playoffs, you need like guys that are like can create their own shot and are like dynamic scorers. And they don't really. I mean, Tatum does that, and Brown will have his games sometimes, but that's kind of it. Like that's not really enough. I mean, the Bucks have Giannis, okay, and Giannis he was good today. He'll probably be better in a few other games during the series. Like,
Well, and the thing with Giannis that's scary is he had a triple-double today, and he had 12 assists. I mean, he's a
good passer. He made some nice passes.
He's a better playmaker than anybody Boston has, and that's what you need when you don't have like a whole 2-3 dominant offensive players. You need a guy who's making plays to get guys easy shots, and they don't really have. So I think we can close the book on Boston having this unbelievable defense. I think we need to knock that off.
Yeah, that whole thing was ridiculous. They have a good defense,
right?
But
we need to knock that off. I still think Boston has a shot in this series, but Tatum's going to have to be much. I mean, Tatum and Brown will be better. They weren't very good today.
Yeah,
but I think Tatum has to be a better playmaker. He's really got to create more openings for these guys. But as I said, if I don't know how Boston's going to get by playing two bigs like this. I think they have to try to play small because the teams that we've seen do damage against Milwaukee, they either play small or they have a really great pick and roll player like Chris Paul who can do damage against them. That's how you beat this team. I don't think
you got to break them down and you got to create like Boston was not in the second half. They were not creating easy looks.
Right.
I mean, they were getting some open shots, but that's what the Bucks wanted them to get.
Right.
So
they weren't getting the shots that they want. They were getting the shots Milwaukee wanted them to get.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think this series has a long way to go. And is Drew Holiday going to give you 20 points every game? Probably not.
That's the other thing. Yeah, he played well today.
Right.
I don't necessarily know that he's going to do that every game. So
and can they get a game where Grayson Allen makes a bunch of shots? Is he going to do again? Where's the consistent offense for Milwaukee going to come from?
Yeah.
But like I said, Milwaukee's got that great playmaker that creates all of these other things. And Giannis was spectacular today. Like, he'll probably have more points in some of these other games, but he's got the whole package. He's now got that nice mid-range, free throw line jumper. He's got post moves. He didn't show a lot of them today, but he's got them. He's got the nice jump hook. He's got all the stuff. So it's like I don't know what you're. There's just certain things.
But as we know, if he was playing in the 80s, they would have just turned him into a jump shooter like Charles Oakley said. So, he's really not that good. So,
Yeah, there's some things in this series aren't going to change, right? Giannis playing like that, that's not going to change. That's going to happen every game. Tatum,
he may score more points, but that's
right.
basically it. He's going to keep playing.
Tatum's going to play well. That's probably going to be on a consistent basis. You can count on that. And, the rest of it comes down to all that stuff. All right, so moving on to Memphis Golden State. Wow. That was
I thought Phoenix Golden State would be the series I wanted to see, and we may still end up seeing that, and it may be totally awesome. But I mean, this series looks like it's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, coming in, I thought, I liked Golden State in the series because they have the advantage, the continuity advantage of the main guys knowing how to win big games. I think we're talking about Golden State's experience. I think their experience is a little overplayed. People are talking about it. Yeah, people are talking about it as if, they just have now. But against Memphis, they do have a huge experience advantage. I'm not going to say, I can't make that up. But yeah, it's like Golden State knows exactly what to do, and they play at a certain level most of the time. You know what I mean? Memphis, peaks and valleys. They play really well sometimes, and sometimes it's like, what are you guys doing? Yeah. And so that's,
they're behind a bunch against Minnesota.
Right.
So
Right. That's what happens with young teams. Now, to their credit, they fight like hell. They play really hard. They're in it. They're going to be in every game. But this came down to execution at the highest level. And
let's not forget Draymond got ejected from the game in the second quarter. So the Warriors will have Draymond the entire game the next game. That said, I still think it's a long series. I mean, Golden State got the win in Memphis, so they got the split that they needed.
Yeah. So if you're a Memphis fan, I'm concerned because look, Curry and Thompson were in foul trouble at numerous times during the game. Draymond Green got ejected. You got 30 points from Morant and 30 points from Jaren Jackson, who, by the way, this was a coming out party for Jaren Jackson. That guy, my goodness, that's the future of the NBA right there. 7-footer who can guard everybody and make threes.
Yeah.
Why am I getting a time limit on this? Yeah, so I think Jaren Jackson was awesome today. So yeah, you get two unbelievable performances by two players on your team. You're playing at home, and you can't figure out how to win the game. So it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't look good for Memphis trying to win the series. I think that, Golden State, as the series goes on, their defense will get better. I don't know that Memphis's defense will get a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Because.
Oh, and by the way, to the people who've been touting the narrative that Steph Curry's a terrible defender, he's not a terrible defender. He's not a great defender, but he's a solid defender. And the defense he played on, was it Morant?
Yeah.
Yeah. The defense, that was textbook defense. That was really good.
Yeah. Trae Young is a bad defender.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Here's the deal. A lot of defense, well, not all the defense, but a good portion of it is giving a shit, and the rest of it, you need to know where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do, and you got to play smart and all that stuff. Steph Curry does not have the physical tools to be a great defender. Okay. But he knows what he's supposed to do. And he does, he does when he plays smart. Okay. So he's a pretty good defender.
Yeah. And if you're going to attack Steph Curry, you need to have a bigger player doing it.
Yeah.
Like whenever teams try to get switches on the Curry, it's always a team that has LeBron or a player that, Steph Curry's much smaller than. You can't do it when it's the same size.
Yeah.
So yeah, that being said, John Moran, I thought, man, when that was a nice play they ran, I thought he was going to be able to score there. Yeah. And they did
it's a tough shot.
Yep.
But
tough shot, but he makes a lot of those.
Yeah.
So
one of the layups he had, he split. I don't know how the hell he got the ball up to the basket. I mean, that dude is nuts.
Yeah. So we need to knock off the narrative that John Moran is just he's another Derrick Rose or Russell Westbrook.
Yeah. Now, granted, he has some. I mean, that dunk he had in one of the Minnesota games where he it was the end of the third quarter. I think it was game 5. Yeah, it was game 5, and he just went up and tomahawked it.
Yeah, his athleticism is like those guys, but the way he plays is not. He does a really good job getting teammates involved, making sure the ball goes to the right place. He doesn't take a lot of bad shots. he's not a great shooter, but he's not killing you because he's taking,
Yeah.
3-pointers with 18 seconds on the shot clock. He's, so yeah, no, I think, Ja Morant's for real, and this Memphis team is, I mean, my goodness, but again, they have very little experience. They just won their first playoff series, and the only guy who's actually played in the playoffs before is Steven Adams, and he's not even playing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the Warriors in 6. I think Memphis gives them a hard time just because they're a tough team to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, so moving on to the other thing, just as a side note, I wanted to say I texted you this the other day that somebody I forget on which podcast it was on said the Minnesota Memphis series is like both teams just took a bunch of bath salts before they went out to play. Because it's insane. Okay, I mean, the whole thing was insane. It made me so upset because I'm watching it. It's the only series that I was yelling at the television about just because of how insane. Like, what are you doing? Minnesota
just did some really stupid crap.
Minnesota more than Memphis, but Memphis was still like got out of control all the time and just couldn't, just maintain their composure. It was like, guys, just chill. They couldn't sit still, those guys. But anyway, yeah, so that leads me into, watching Karl Anthony Towns in this series. That's one of the things that frustrated and angered me more than anything I've seen in this playoffs, for sure.
9 minutes to go. I hit a 3.
Yeah. I mean, they blew 2 20-point leads. They had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter of 4 of the 6 games. Okay. Yeah. Meanwhile, the Karl Anthony Towns hits 1 3-pointer, and he's acting like he's the best thing ever and talking all kinds of shit. And meanwhile, they go on to lose. It's like, dude, just.
When you're giving a grade to a season, it has to be about not just what your expectations were, but also what you're actually capable of. Okay, so with Minnesota, they weren't going to win the championship,
right?
But okay, just making the playoffs and then doing that and being that close to winning so many of those games and then losing the series, that's a disappointment. Okay, like we're Miami Heat fans. They're not winning the championship. They may not even make the Eastern Conference Finals. But this year's basically been a success. Unless they have a horrible series against Philadelphia, this year's been a success because they're only capable of so much. Okay, but Minnesota, that's a failure. Okay, I mean, if you'd made the playoffs and you just got blown out every game because you're not that good, okay. But to get into a series like that where you really could have legitimately won the series and to blow it because you're being stupid, like that's a failure. You should be thinking about that all summer long and be pissed off about it.
Yeah. They have some promise, but it's disturbing when 2 of your better players, or your most experienced players, D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns, look just completely lose their mind in certain parts of the game. And one of the things that really just annoyed me was I think it was Game 5 where Minnesota, it looked like they had it. And then, they're up. I think they were down 1 and there was under a minute to go. It was like 45 seconds left. So they come down instead of, Memphis gets their defense set. The coach doesn't call timeout to set something up. And D'Angelo Russell just basically dribbles the clock down and then takes a fadeaway 18-footer. And I was like, really? Like, this is what you're going to do? Like, that's what you're going to run? The game's on the line here. This is what you're going to run. Like, just, oh my God, it's got to be so frustrating to be a fan of their team. I don't know how people do it.
Well, yeah, and then we were in Game 5. Everyone was giving Ja Morant all this credit, and I'm like, yeah, he deserves some credit. He made a shot, and he made that layup. But he made that layup because they're inbounding the ball, and Ja Morant goes to get it, and then Anthony Edwards tries to steal the ball. What the fuck are you doing?
Right. Yeah, you want to keep Ja Morant outside the 3-point line. The point is to keep him
shoot a jump shot. What the hell are you doing?
Right. You want to keep him away from the basket as long as you possibly can. And now and the thing is, it's just so frustrating because the previous play, the coach calls a play in the timeout. They run a great set. Anthony Davis gets an open 3 and he nails it. And it's just like, so that's the frustrating part. They have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
They just can't. They can't keep their heads together. But
They're young. I love they're a young team. How long has Carl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell been in the league?
they were the first 2 picks in the 2015 draft.
D'Angelo Russell's been on 4 teams.
Yeah, so it's a little frustrating. But anyway, that leads me. The Carl Anthony Towns leads me right into my next segment, which is the top 5 most hated players in the NBA. It just made me think of this because it's like I can't. First of all, I can't stand Carl Anthony Towns, and then Carl Anthony Towns acts like a lunatic on the court, and then goes to the press conference and is like, "Next question." Yeah, we gotta win. We just gotta win. It's really bad because by all indications he's actually a really good guy, and is relatively intelligent, but he gets on the basketball court and it's just. So before I get into my top 5, these are some of my. I'm gonna give you some honorable mentions. Now listen, I'm not gonna go Kevin Durant and LeBron James. I'm sorry. If you hate Kevin Durant and LeBron James, that's your own personal issue.
You can be annoyed. I mean, I'm annoyed with certain things about Kevin Durant, but I'm not Right.
But for the most part, those guys, they play basketball. They're not really causing problems. They don't have major,
Yeah.
It's a lot of created stuff. Like if your biggest problem with LeBron is, he gets involved too much with the front office and he does whatever. Like, come on.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go there. They're hated more because they're so good and they're so well known that it has a lot less to do with anything that they do. They would be hated no matter what they do. So,
Yeah.
All right. So honorable mentions. Number 1, Trae Young, which I don't really have a problem with Trae. I like. I think he's a good player. I think that he's kind of been unveiled as a bit of a one-trick pony. He runs the pick and roll, and that's what he can do. And he's either taking the 3 if you go under, or if you try to, send 2 guys out, he can drive to the basket and hit the floater. That's about it. But
yeah.
I don't find him super annoying. He talks a bunch of junk, and I understand why he's kind of a lightning rod player, why people don't like him if he's playing against your team. But I don't really have a problem with Trae Young. What about you?
Yeah. No, I don't really. I mean, he's a young player. There's still time for the narrative to be fully written about him. So I guess you could sort of be critical of some things like in the playoffs this year, like the Heat just kind of shut him down. But
yeah. Russell Westbrook.
I really don't like Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled with him. He's but he's kind of one of those guys. He's always been this way, and he's never changed. He basically thinks he's awesome, and if he plays like he's supposed to, the team should win. And it's
the reason I don't like Russell Westbrook is because if you go on YouTube and you watch videos of games from the season where he won the MVP because he averaged a triple-double, and you watch him literally hunting rebounds and assists.
Yeah.
Dribbling down the court, passing up, driving to the basket, and just waiting for somebody to get open so he passes them the ball. And if they didn't shoot, he would yell at them, or stealing rebounds from his teammates. Okay. And I'm supposed to go all nuts because he averaged a triple-double.
Yeah, you can't.
That's just, and I think the funniest one is you can watch. There's one video where, because at that time Kevin Durant was on Golden State, so there's a video of Kevin Durant and Steph Curry on the bench laughing at Russell Westbrook because he's yelling at his teammates because they didn't take a shot because he passed them the ball. Because at that point Westbrook had already had his double-digit points in the game, so it's like, all right, I got to get my assists and my rebounds to get the triple-double.
Yeah, he's you're not going to win with him. And now that he's gotten older, it's the same thing. He can't shoot. He continues to try to shoot. He has no, it's funny though. I would like it if some players had more of his mindset. Like I would like it better if if Ben Simmons had Russell Westbrook's mindset, where she's like, no, I'm going. You know what I mean? Because it's just, so it's really.
Yeah, with Russell Westbrook, I guess it just reaches a point where you just kind of go, instead of being mad at him, you just go, dude, you just don't get it. Like, because he's saying like, like I think after the season this year, he's like, everywhere I go, I got to keep trying to prove myself. It's like, dude, just forget it. You just don't get it. I don't care anymore. Like,
Yeah. There's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing to say. Like it's kind of done. This one, I think DeMarcus Cousins. You want to talk about a guy who just permanent stink face all the time? Like the guy is pissed. He must wake up pissed off. He literally. It's just Now I realize he's not a big a deal anymore, and he's kind of comes off the bench for Denver. I get it, but the dude could not be more annoyed to be out there. It's just it's just he's just pissed off, complains to the ref. Everything is a bad call.
And I kind of feel a little bad for him because he was about to really get paid, and then he got a severe injury, and now he's just bounced around the league. I mean, it's kind of one of the craziest things where it's like he literally lost out on millions and millions of dollars, and granted he's still playing in the NBA, so I can't feel too bad for him, I guess.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not thrilled with DeMarcus. Just my God, like he's the last guy I want on my team. Just it's a problem. Like he just you notice he's never stayed on one team for very long. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Let's see. In the game today, Draymond Green. I didn't put him in my top 5, although he was close. But I don't really have that big a problem with him. I think.
Well, I'll put it this way. Everybody's an asshole unless they're your asshole.
Right.
So if he's on your team, that's great. But if you're playing against him, it's like, fuck this guy.
And honestly, he's a bit much. It's a bit insanity. But he, as far as team wise, like he does do stupid crap. Like he can't get, if he get more of these flagrant fouls, he's going to end up getting suspended for a playoff game. And, famously got suspended in the finals for acting ridiculous. So, and so it's, it's a bit of an issue. He can cause your team some problems. Now that being said, off the court, media, I mean, if you listen to Draymond's really good on his podcast, and I think he's got a real career in media, but not, if you're playing against him, you're not in love with him. You're kind of annoyed this guy, every single call. It gets to be a bit much. All right, so number 5, my top 5, Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
And most people would probably have him higher, but I don't. I can only hate him so much because I think he's pretty much limited. He's pretty limited as a player, and now with his contract, he's really limited. So I just think, I can hate it. I hate his whole situation. I hate his whole attitude. If you,
it's like, dude, you're like, you're fortunate to be in the NBA, and you just seemingly couldn't give a shit less.
Right.
Like,
not interested in getting better. Doesn't really want to be a great player. Only will only play his way. That's it. And I just
Well, it's kind of like Jay Cutler. It's just like when someone walks around, they just literally don't give a shit. I mean, like it just point like, dude, seriously, really? Like,
yeah, but at least Cutler will go out on the field and make mistakes and not really. Ben Simmons is too afraid to make any mistakes.
Yeah, Jay Cutler will make mistakes. He doesn't give a shit.
Right. Couldn't care less about you. Pretty much passive aggressive. Passive aggressive, always giving dirty looks to his teammates. Like, So Ben Simmons, like, dude, I've had it. I've had it with your whole thing. And the sad part is, because of the way the contract structure works in the NBA, Philadelphia basically had to give him the max deal to keep him. They basically didn't have much of a choice, which is kind of how the NBA works. So they got stuck. Now, granted, I think Philly did. I think Philly's going to regret not getting some different stuff in the trade other than James Harden. It brings us to number 4, James Harden. Literally just basically gave up on 2 different teams. And by the way, giving up on Houston, it's regrettable, but I get it. Giving up on Brooklyn? Like, you're playing with Kevin Durant, and you're like, I don't really want to be here. It's like, what? Like,
Yeah.
you lost me on that. Like, really? It was that bad? Like, I don't get it. And then he goes to Philadelphia. Like, he obviously doesn't give a shit about staying in shape. You know,
He's really going to be out of shape before game one of this series against Miami because it's in Miami.
well, it depends on what the buffet is like at the strip club. It depends.
Yeah.
So yeah, he drives me nuts. But of these guys, he's probably the guy who I believe in playing. As far as a player at this point of his career, that I still kind of believe in. He can still do a lot of stuff to help you win. He's not.
So, by the way, this list is only current players because we should probably in the next episode do like a historical list because I got people in the NBA history. Like, I used to fucking hate Manu Ginobili. Like, actually, in fact, screw that. The whole Spurs team because they were the whiniest bunch of douchebags ever.
Yeah,
okay?
Tim Duncan face. He always right. They look like they've never gotten a call in their favor. But yeah, that's a good idea. We'll do that next time. But yeah, number 3, Patrick Beverley. You are not anywhere near good enough to act like you act, bro. Not even close. Like, you are a role player at best. And you act as if you're the most important guy on the team. Enough. Like, enough with the act. You beat the Clippers. Congratulations. Okay? Yeah, you got kicked off of that team. You've been kicked off of all kinds of teams. So what? The Clippers are trying to win, and they traded you. They didn't cut you. Like, give me a break. Like, the whole thing with the play-in and, I had to beat the Clippers, and I wanted this one, and give me a break, dude. It's a bunch of nonsense for not much production. Guys like you are going to be out of the league real quick. So yeah, I'm tired of the whole Patrick Beverley act. I can't stand the dude. Like, enough, man.
Yeah.
Give me a break. Get off my television. All right, number 2, and this is another guy that a lot of people will have number 1, Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to talk about a guy who can't be bothered? Whew. I mean, this guy just I don't feel like playing today.
I don't think I'm gonna show up.
Yeah. No, you know what? There's more important things in the world. You know what? I don't really, I'm not in the mood. I'm the voice for the voiceless, man. I'm not getting vaccinated. It's like, what? Like, I think he's on another plane of existence than the rest of us because he seems to talk in these ways about, and then it's all the media's fault. Well, it's the media's fault. Basketball's just a game. That's fine. You can say it's just a game, but you're getting paid $40 million a year. Show up to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not asking for, greatness here. And by the way, he is great. It's not a discussion. Like, the idea that Russell Westbrook's in the top 75 and Kyrie Irving isn't is a joke. Like, give me a break. Damian Lillard over Kyrie Irving? What are you smoking? I love Damian Lillard, but Kyrie Irving's a better player. But yeah, he just, I don't know what planet he's on.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
And
I kind of put him and Baker Mayfield in almost the same category where I'm just kind of like, well, you guys just fucking play. Granted, Kyrie Irving doesn't play. Baker goes out and plays even when it's advisable that he doesn't when it was with his shoulder all screwed up. Well, but his comments to the media are really annoying. Same thing with Kyrie.
It would be different if Baker was really, really good. That's the problem with Kyrie. Kyrie's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But you can't win with him. You can't. Like, Brooklyn, we can say all we want about Brooklyn. They're not going anywhere with Kyrie on the team. Because in this series, you saw it. The first game, he was awesome. The rest of the series, he was
Yeah.
It's like, dude, where are you? Like, So anyway, and number 1, drum roll, please. Obviously, it's Karl Anthony Towns. I can't stand this freaking guy. I've had it. Dude, enough. You go crazy when you make a shot. I mean, at least Kyrie Irving on the court is fine. Maybe he doesn't play well all the time, but he's not like, causing problems or just, talking a bunch of junk or acting like a lunatic. Like, he's not like Karl Anthony Towns. I don't know what planet you're from, dude. Like, it's just, he's really good, but it's like he doesn't know how to play basketball. The posting up at the 3-point line, like, where are you from? Like, what planet is that ever going to work? Like, and then I love he goes, all right, I'm taking this guy off the dribble. I'm 25 feet from the basket, but I'm taking him off the dribble. It's like, dude, what are you doing? What are you watching? Like, go down on the block and post up if you want to post up. Like, I'm not against posting up, but you can't do it this way. And then just every single call, he's jumping, slamming into guys, throwing his arms everywhere. And it's like, you can't believe they called a foul. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
like, you have the most obvious fouls I've ever seen in my life. Like, you can't keep your hands to yourself. No wonder you're getting fouls called on you.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, so he is a hindrance. Maybe, you know, and I hold out, of all these guys, I hold out some hope for him that he'll do something to change, maybe. But you know, like I said, we're 7 years in.
Yeah.
We're 7 years in. Like, you're still doing this shit? Like, this is, it's hideous. Anyway, so that's my list. Any comments on
No, that's a good list. I'm trying to. I can't really think of anybody else that I would throw on there.
Yeah, I mean, I looked up online, and basically, you know, like I said, it's always the best players. It's LeBron and Kevin Durant are 1 and 2 on a bunch of lists, and it's like, guys, they're not that hateable.
There's things that annoy me about LeBron and Kevin Durant, but I wouldn't say, you know.
Right, but it's not like, God, I hate that. I can't stand that guy. None of what they do rises to the level of any of the five guys I named.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so yeah, last but not least, we had the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Which wasn't a great draft. I mean, I'd give it a D plus, maybe a D minus. You know,
Yeah.
It was not great. And, you know, and part of it has nothing to do with anything. It's just there weren't a lot of stars. The stars in this draft were defensive ends and offensive linemen, which, yeah, let me tell you, if you love linemen, this was the draft for you.
It is funny to me though, because, you know, I understand why in comparison, like the Major League Baseball draft is nowhere near as big of a deal. I mean, baseball isn't as big of a deal as football anyway, but also those guys are going to go to the minors and you don't know who the hell actually could ever play on the Major League team. It's such a crapshoot, you know, but I mean, you know, how many of these guys are going to be good?
Right. Half the first round,
outside of the first round.
Yeah, half the first round picks don't make it 3 years in the league. 50% of the total players in the NFL total are undrafted.
Yeah.
So we really, I think we're doing a much better job of not overrating draft picks, but we still kind of do.
Yeah, but the NFL has. To be honest, I don't know how the hell they pulled this off. They turned the draft into this event where it's like all these people we got to watch, and then you start to go, well, wait a minute, why do we need to watch this? The last couple of years, I'm kind of watching it, going, do I really care about this? I don't know who any of these people are.
I mean, I understand it from being a fan of a team and what kind of we don't get to go behind the curtain and see what goes on, but this is a little bit of a window into kind of how our NFL teams think and how they're trying to build their team. So I think from that standpoint, it's kind of interesting if you're an NFL fan. But you know, yeah. So 30 million people watched the first round on Thursday night, and that's actually down from where it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you know, you and I were talking about this earlier. Like 30 million people. Like, just to put that in perspective, guys, the only thing during a year that more people are going to watch are NFL playoff games and the Super Bowl. That's it. 30 million people do not watch NBA Finals games. Like, they'll be lucky to get 15.
Is that? Do you know how that compares to like other major TV events besides sports?
There's nothing close. The Oscars gets like 9 million people.
Okay.
Like there's no other TV program is in the ballpark.
Okay.
Of where that 30 million people, you can't get 30 million people to watch anything nowadays. Like I said, the only things that even come close are, you know, the NFL playoff games. Obviously, most of them beat it, and the Super Bowl obviously get 100 million people watch that. But that's it. There's no TV shows that get more than 10. Like, it's, you know. So yeah, so my comment is like, yeah, I mean, I thought it, you know, I think it's interesting, but I'm watching it
It's interesting to a point,
right.
But it's like the fact that this many people watch it, that many people go, and I'm just kind of like, this just kind of feels like it's something the NFL has just started to feed people, and then the media feeds into it too. And it's just like, guys, do we really care about it? It's the same thing with, like, you talk about this a lot about how they're trying to make you think that every single NFL regular season game matters a lot. And that's not exactly true. College football, it's still pretty close to every game mattering. But you know, in the NFL, it's kind of, I mean,
Yeah, listen. I'm a football fan. And even I am like, I'm watching it on another screen. I'm watching the NBA playoffs more than I'm watching the draft.
yeah,
And I'm interested to see what's going on. So my question is, 30 minutes, America, what are we doing?
yeah.
Like, what are we doing? Like, we're really sitting and watching players get picked in a draft? Like, it's not a game. You know, I understand the human interest part of it, right? It's kind of like the Olympics because they do the human interest version of it on ABC, right? Where they talk, and you get to see these kids, you know, man, I get that. Totally get all that. But really? So, yeah, the NFL is king. It's not even a question. As I told you, the NFL's heroin. We're hooked. They're the drug dealers. And literally, we can't get enough. We'll pay whatever the price is. And so, yeah, it does.
I just wonder if there's like what alcoholics would refer to as a moment of clarity that some people get every now and then, where they kind of go, maybe we should pull back a little bit. Maybe this is getting a little nuts,
And the train is not slowing down. So the problem that I see, what concerns me is that the NFL at this point now, the NFL can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Like they can ignore domestic violence, right? Just let Deshaun Watson.
It's kind of like Trump during the 2016 election. I could walk out onto Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't get kicked out of the election race.
So that's what bothers me, is that they basically can just ignore Deshaun Watson's issues, give him $230 million. It's fine. They can do, they can choose to enforce, drug rules. They cannot. They can, they can do, whatever they want. So that kind of
that kind of bugs me. Yeah,
it kind of bothers me. The other thing was
I've kind of, just as I've gotten older, I've kind of pulled back on sports to an extent anyway. So like I watch like the biggest games, the stuff that I'm actually interested in, but you're not going to catch me watching, the Jaguars play the Texans on Monday Night Football.
Yeah,
there's other sports I can watch, or there's just other stuff I can watch. There's so many options now, So
yeah. So anyway, yeah. So here are my my few takeaways from the draft. I don't want to. It doesn't make any sense for us to rag on the NFL while we're going to sit here and talk about football. But we may be part of the problem, and
as Dolphins fans, the Dolphins didn't have any first round picks, so they couldn't fuck it up. So that was great.
Yeah, you made a very good point. No first rounder, no second rounder. And by the way, watching the first round, I'm kind of glad the Dolphins didn't have a first round pick. to be honest, there were some guys I would have liked to have, but the Dolphins wouldn't have had a high enough pick to get any of them anyway. So it kind of worked out. So,
by the way, did you hear on Colin Cowherd's show that he was talking about the Detroit Lions, and he was saying they had a really good draft, and then he was like, he was talking about different things on their roster, and he referred to their quarterback as a Super Bowl quarterback. Bro, are you all of last year you were ripping on Jared Goff for good reason? Now he's a Super Bowl. Really?
He has taken a team to the Super Bowl. He's not wrong about that.
I mean, yeah, but that's kind of, come on.
Listen, they had opportunities last year and this year to draft a quarterback, and they didn't. Now, maybe that's because they're incompetent. I get it. But they still chose to stick with him, so that means something.
I guess.
So, I mean, my number one takeaway is the NFL teams were not in love with these quarterbacks. We were hearing the whole last few months, they'll be 3 in the first round. Absolutely.
I was kind of surprised by that, because usually teams reach. They get desperate and they reach, which maybe that's changing.
Yeah, that's like three. We'll have 3, maybe 4 in the first round, and it was kind of like. And by the way, Pittsburgh was not like, it wasn't like Pittsburgh traded up to get Kenny Pickett. They just let him
just sit there.
They just let him sit there, and that's who they wanted. And I'm not going to get into criticizing people's draft picks. I think it's kind of stupid to do that. Number one, I don't know what their thought process is, and number two, you don't know. Don't try to pretend you know exactly. And we are always these teams are always right on this stuff. Please, I said half the first round picks are out of the league in 3 years. So
Yep.
get out of here with that nonsense. But so Kenny Pickett went in the first round. Desmond Ritter went to Atlanta in the third round. Malik Willis went to Tennessee in the third round, and Matt
Yeah.
Corral went to Carolina.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not particularly interested in any of those. I think it's interesting that Tennessee did take a quarterback because nobody was expecting that. It's really good value to get him in the third round.
Yeah. So what is that? It's a third round quarterback, so I don't really take too much from it.
Doesn't mean a whole lot. But I think, as far as where these guys went, I think, I like Kenny Pickett going to Pittsburgh, stable organization. They know
Yeah,
what
it's
they're
a really
doing.
good situation.
I like
He may not be any good. Who knows?
Right.
I mean, we'll
if
see.
you're gonna take Desmond Ritter, I like that Atlanta got him where they got him. I think Willis, think about it. If you're gonna jump into a situation, Tennessee has the best running back in the league. They lost AJ Brown, which we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's a solid place to go. So Tennessee, I thought made a nice. Tennessee, Philly. I thought did a really nice job in the draft. They got the big nose tackle from Georgia, Jordan Davis. They got the best linebacker from Georgia, Nakobe Dean, I think in the third or fourth round. And then they made a trade to get A.J. Brown from Tennessee, which, listen, Philadelphia, they're usually pretty good at the draft. And I thought that was I thought they did a nice job, helping their team out. I really liked Baltimore getting Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame. They traded down and then got Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame, and then later on in the first round got the best center in the draft. And for a team like that, that's literally when you can get impact players when you're already a good team like that. That's I really like Kyle Hamilton. I think he's going to be good. As usual, the Patriots, they did kind of what they always do. They traded down in the first round, and then picked a guy at the end of the first round that they could have gotten 30 or 40 picks later.
Yep.
Because you know what? We got to have the guard from Chattanooga. So, and the thing is, it's not that the Patriots are bad at it. Like they do a pretty good job on defense guys and offensive line. So it may be okay. They may not matter, but it's so New England.
Yep.
It's just Belichick is the only guy who's like, I really don't care. We're just going to take, and listen, I really believe in the theory that it doesn't matter where you draft them, it matters how they play. I agree with that. It doesn't really matter that the Dolphins drafted Tua. It matters that they didn't draft Justin Herbert. It doesn't really matter that they drafted him fifth. He sucks. That's the problem. So I don't like to get caught up in value. I did find it interesting though. The Patriots took a quarterback in the fourth round.
Yeah,
which that's kind of interesting.
They took Brady in the sixth round when they didn't need a quarterback. So that's what they do.
Yeah. So the other thing that I thought was interesting was Jacksonville. So Jacksonville gets the number one pick, right? And they have the choice between Trayvon Walker from Georgia, who's this kind of a
Hutchinson.
Yeah, Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson. So Walker is like this really freak athlete from Georgia, but he didn't really play defensive end all the time. They moved him all over the place, and he only had 6 sacks in college. So it's like you're taking a guy. This draft to me was much more like an NBA draft. You're taking guys just for potential. Like they took him for 2-3 years from now, what he's going to be. Other than Aiden Hutchinson, who was really productive in college and, had all of the numbers and all the physical stuff. And so, and Detroit took him, which, that's the kind of guy who can come in day one and be productive. Is he going to be great? I don't know. But I don't know that anybody in this first round of the draft is going to be great. It was just kind of, that I thought was kind of interesting. They took a bit of a chance taking him, with the number one pick in the draft. You would think that would be, you wouldn't want to screw around. Yeah. But then again, my thought on that is all these picks are defined by who's the team that took them, right? If you're Jacksonville, you're going to be drafted in the top 5 next year anyway.
Yeah.
So what does it matter? I don't understand the criticism. Like, who cares? So what? They missed out on Aiden Hutchinson. Okay. Is he the next Reggie White?
No,
I don't
I
know.
don't think anyone thought that.
So it's just kind of like, all right, it's not that big a deal. But yeah, that was really all I had on the draft. I mean, I think it's a good TV show.
Yeah.
But I'm just confused. I'm confused with America. I don't know what America likes. I mean, I know we're addicted to football, but man, it just seems crazy to me. It seems like a lot more people should have watched the Warriors defeat the Grizzlies today than the NFL draft.
Yeah.
I'm just confused. That's all I'm saying. Oh, last thing before we go. This is my Dolphins prediction for this season, okay?
Oh.
I like that they took the linebacker from Georgia in the third round. I think that's anybody from Georgia is probably a good pick this year. So this is what I think. The GM, the general manager, Chris Greer, went all in on this season. I think the Dolphins are going to win 10 or 11 games, probably make the playoffs. We're going to get smoked by some really good team with a great quarterback, at some point, once we get into the playoffs. And everybody's going to go, oh, man, they had a great season. And Tua's going to have 28 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. And everybody's going to talk about how great he was when it's all the coach and the running game and the system. And so Clark, we're on our way. We're on our way. The Ryan Tannehill syndrome could repeat itself.
Yeah.
They could give Tua some big, big, stupid contract after a nice year.
And one last thing, the Dallas Cowboys are going to miss the playoffs and probably go like 7-10. So mark it down. They lost a bunch of people. They're not making the playoffs.
Yeah, Cowboys look like trouble. And that was really funny in the press conference when they're like, yeah, we took this tackle. Yeah, well, nobody else had him there. It's like, well, we had him as our best tackle. It's like, okay, that tells me there's something wrong with you. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You think he's the best tackle? Oh, really?
All right, you have fun with that.
Yeah. So, anything else?
No, I think that's good.
All right.